friends, welcome back to another week of dinners video, and if you are new here, welcome. This week's video is going to be a little different than our usual weekly video because we had quite a bit of things that were out of the norm going on this week. I'm starting off with Valentine's Day. I know this is a little late, but we did do a Valentine's dinner with the kids a little later. My husband and I, we celebrated together on Valentine's Day, and we don't usually go all out for Valentine's Day. It's kind of just a quick dinner and maybe some like a special dessert or something. And then usually we'll get chocolates or flowers, the usual thing. We do not go all out. However, my younger two boys, specifically Lincoln, was really excited for Valentine's Day this year, and so I put together a special dinner for us to celebrate with the kids. They were decorating some heart-shaped cookies. It's just a kit that I bought for $3 at Walmart, but it kept them busy for quite a while, and then they enjoyed eating the cookies. They also did some crafts, and they were able to dress up for a special dinner that we had that evening. This week's video is also a little different because we had a somewhat unexpected snowstorm. We knew it was going to happen, but we didn't think it was really going to be as big as it was going to be until right before it happened. So although I went grocery shopping, it wasn't like a full-on, we need to prepare for a storm type of grocery shopping, and it just seemed kind of chaotic. So the meals this week are meals that can stretch over multiple different meals. For instance, a rotisserie chicken from the store or one that you roast can be made in multiple different ways for multiple different meals, which I think is a really good thing to know anyway, because especially with grocery prices right now, they are insane and it can feel impossible sometimes if you're feeding a family on these prices. So I often do meals that can stretch like this. It is a very good way to cut down your budget for groceries. And it's a really good way to make sure you're not adding to food waste and you're using up everything that you have. After the kids decorated all of the cookies and ate them, they then made chocolate covered strawberries and decorated them with the sprinkles from the cookies that were left over. And then they were making Valentine's Day monsters. I went ahead and bought the miniature cupcakes from Walmart because I had just previously made like a heart-shaped cake. It was on one of my recent videos, and I didn't really have the time or want to make another cake, so I just bought these in a pinch, and I am putting them on a cutting board and shaping them into a heart. Worked out perfectly, and it was super easy. These are going to be the dessert for the kids' Valentine's Day dinner that we had with them. For dinner tonight, we're going to throw some steaks on the grill, and we're going to have baked potatoes and a vegetable and a salad. I ended up finding a pretty large pack of steaks at Sam's Club for just under $20, so that is what we're going to put on the grill. And I specifically picked a pretty large portion because I want to be able to use it for other meals. I'm gonna have to go back and check to see how big these were because they were pretty big, and like I said, it was under $20. It was like $19 and some change for this package, and I am not huge on seasoning steaks. I will just do salt, pepper, and maybe something extra like garlic or another seasoning. I do end up adding another seasoning because my husband recently brought it home and wanted to try it, but I like the flavor of steak with like just some steak sauce, and that's generally how the rest of my family is too. So I don't usually go too crazy with seasonings or marinades for the steaks. I do apologize because my camera was a little wonky at this point when my husband brought the camera out. I did not realize that a child would be filming that portion, but there was a child that was holding the camera and filming. So they had their finger over it at one point and it was just kind of all over the place. Anyway, so that is why the camera was a little wonky. I am just doing a very simple salad. I don't think I added anything really that special. I did put in a couple of hard-boiled eggs because my family I don't really love eggs in salads, but my husband and my kids really do. So I made a giant salad and there was actually some leftovers, which there usually isn't, but there was so much food that night. So they had some leftovers and we were able to enjoy some of the salad the next day too. One thing my husband specifically requested for Valentine's Day was sauteed mushrooms. This is something I have not made in years. So I bought these portobello mushrooms at Sam's Club. They came in a huge pack and they were super cheap. So I am cutting them up in kind of chunkier pieces and I will saute them on the stove. My mother-in-law made this quite a bit years ago when we were first dating and first together. And then I used to make them too. My brother used to love these. I don't know why I really stopped making them. Maybe it's one of those things where I forgot about, but apparently, my husband has not, and he has been practically begging for them. So, this is what I made to go kind of as like a vegetable. If you are interested in any of the recipes that you see from today's video, I will have them in the description box below. If you happen to not see one, because there are kind of some pretty self-explanatory ones in today's video. So if you happen to not see one and you do want more specific instructions on it, just let me know and I will put it up there for you. The steaks turned out beautifully. It was such a nice treat. We do not get steaks very often, but see how massive they are? It was such a nice treat to have for Valentine's Day. And like I said, this wasn't on Valentine's Day. This was just something we wanted to do special with our kids. I'm slicing them all up and distributing them for everybody's plate, giving everybody a proper portion, and then that kind of also leaves quite a bit left for us to be able to make it in other recipes too. We are moving on to the next meal. These are honey mustard chicken bacon biscuits. That's a mouthful, but I don't know what else to call them. This was just something that I threw together. Again, I was not really prepared for the snowstorm that we were currently in at this point, but I was trying to make some things from scratch and just make things work. We had two rotisserie chickens that I had deboned and that we were needing to eat. So I was trying to find different recipes to include them in. And my kids love like sliders and little sandwiches, and I don't know, this almost reminded me of like a Chick-fil-A. We do not have Chick-fil-A anywhere near us, but I miss it from back in the Chicago area. So I am making homemade biscuits because I don't have any, so I'm making these. And you're supposed to have like a biscuit cutter, but I just make them into squares because I don't have one of those. And it's honestly so much easier, I feel like, to just put the whole thing of dough into the pan and then cut it into squares. So I will put the recipe down below for these. I have made these on my channel, but it has been quite a while, so I will put the recipe down below in the description box. But I made the dough, and now I'm going to kind of smash it out evenly into a square, and then I'll roll it out to be about 1 inch thick, and then I'll put them in the pan and cut them before I bake them. These biscuits have very little ingredients. It always surprises me every time I make them. I always forget how little ingredients there is. But you can also, when they first come out of the oven, you can like brush them with melted butter. They're very, very good. They have the crunchiness, they're fluffy, and they have, that little saltiness. They're very, very good. I am taking some of the chicken and cutting it up into smaller pieces, and then I'm going to distribute it onto the biscuits after I cut them all in half. I'll put a slice of bacon or two on each, and then I'm going to make a homemade honey mustard and put it on, and then some cheese, put it in the oven to just kind of warm it and melt it. My intentions with these were to actually wrap them up and put them in the fridge or freezer for later, but they ended up eating all of them. So I only had maybe a couple to put away. I just took the last few, put them in the fridge, and they were gone before I even knew it. So these were a huge hit. Okay, so we are now going back to the steak from earlier, and I am making the second meal with the leftover steak. I'm chopping up onions in pretty thick slices, and I also did I did an entire onion. So I did one in like large strips, and then this one I diced up in pretty thick chunks. And then I cooked some more of the mushrooms, the portobello mushrooms that we had earlier, and I diced up the rest of the steak and put it into the pan too. We were doing kind of a breakfast for dinner type of thing this night, and we are doing steak, egg, and cheese burritos. This is another great meal if you're wanting to get your meals prepped for the entire week. A lot of the meals in today's video are like that. Or if you have a lot going on this week, you can always prep these things all separately, like dicing your vegetables ahead of time, putting it in containers. And then when it comes time to actually making the meal, you're just kind of throwing things together, warming it up. I like to spend like an entire Sunday or a day during the weekend usually where I can prep meals ahead of time and put them in the freezer or put them in the fridge just to make my life easier. We homeschool and we have a lot of different things going on, and time can kind of get away from you sometimes. So, having these things prepared ahead of time, or like I said, when getting a couple different rotisserie chickens from the store or baking them ahead of time, and then having that meat available to where you can heat up and throw in a recipe really quick is such a lifesaver in this busy stage of life that we're in. I sauteed the onions and mushrooms until the onions were translucent. Then I added the steak in and cooked it to warm. I made some scrambled eggs, and as I'm doing this voiceover, I'm thinking I should have just added the cheese to the scrambled eggs. I never ever do that because we are not the cheesy egg family. However, it would have made things so much easier. And I did not realize that until like days later when I'm doing this voiceover. So I do suggest that if you're making this recipe, add the cheese to the eggs while it's cooking. And then instead of what I'm doing here, which is adding the shredded cheese after. I'm assembling all of the tacos now, and you can, of course, use any vegetables. If you wanted peppers, you can do peppers, any toppings, stuff like that, anything that you're wanting, to each their own. I will top this with some Cholula salsa. It is my family's favorite salsa. It is a little on the spicier side, but we usually all like spicier stuff, so I am topping all of the tacos with the Cholula. I'm moving on to the next meal, and can you tell by the amount of mushrooms that I'm using this week how big that package that I got at Sam's Club was? They are huge. The package was huge, and it was only like $3. It was totally worth it. I used it in almost every meal, it seems like. My family really loves mushrooms, so it worked out. If you don't like mushrooms, you can definitely omit them. I don't know what this recipe is even called. I was just kind of trying to use up ingredients and did kind of a mixture of recipes. I will, of course, put it in the description box below because it was very good, but I don't even know what to call it at this point. It is like a cheesy, creamy chicken with vegetable type of thing. I am using up more of the rotisserie chicken. I put in about 2 or 3 cups of chopped rotisserie chicken into this casserole dish with the mushrooms. And then I am putting in a variety of seasonings and different milk and cheese and kind of making a whole concoction here. But it was very good, so I do suggest making this. My family had it over baked potatoes, but you can definitely have it by itself. You can have it over rice or noodles or mashed potatoes, really whatever you'd like to have it. And when I first took this out of the oven, I thought it was a little too much on the soupier side. However, I put it back in the oven and that totally did the trick. And it was a really great, saucy, cheesy mixture. We did not have leftovers for our family of 6 with this meal. However, it was just kind of about using the stuff that we had on hand, and we had so much rotisserie chicken on hand. So it was about using that and the mushrooms, the vegetables, stuff like that that we already had on hand and using it multiple different ways. Doing meals like this every week tends to save me quite a bit on my grocery budget because I'm making sure that I'm using everything that I already have on hand before it goes bad and before I go to the store and buy other things. So we were cooped up in our house already and the stuff needed made. So it forced us to kind of come up with different things, and it also allowed us to find some new really great recipes that we like. We are officially using the rest of the rotisserie chicken in this next recipe. Again, I'm not sure what this is called, but it was really good. I had no idea that these containers that the chicken comes in can be heated, like microwaved, and even dishwasher safe. I had no idea. I checked before I did this recipe, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to dirty any dishes. I'm going to put this in there, and that's how I'm going to do it. So I seasoned it with Italian seasoning, salt, pepper. I'm going to add in a block of cream cheese, and that's what I have here. I melted it a little bit so it was easier to work with. Again, it was just an 8-ounce block of cream cheese. I'll mix it all in, and then I'm going to be assembling these like cheesy burritos. This again is another perfect recipe if you're needing to stock up, if you have something coming up, a surgery, or a baby, these are perfect meals to make ahead of time. This meal will freeze perfectly, so you can make all the individual burritos, and then instead of cooking them, you can wrap them up and put them in the freezer for a later time. I did this a lot before our son had his surgeries. He was always in and out of the hospital, and because we have 4 other children, we needed to kind of plan ahead, much like you do when you're in a pregnancy and you're needing to plan ahead for when the baby comes and you're wanting to have meals already in your freezer. So we did that a lot when we were planning for our son to have different surgeries and different procedures. And these are a great thing to do ahead of time because you can pull them out, warm them up, you can toast them on the stove if you'd like, to kind of give the tortilla that charred taste. And they are really a great option if you're looking for something like that. All I did was mix all the ingredients. I did put in cheddar cheese. Again, I will put the recipe in the description box below so you can see all the things that I actually put into these burritos. And I'll wrap them up, and I'm going to put them on the stove. I'm not going to put these in the freezer. I didn't usually, if I'm going to do that, I will double it, and I didn't do that, but I did have leftovers in the fridge, and my husband ended up bringing them a couple days to work, and my kids ate them for lunches. So it was really nice to have some of these on hand. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for spending the day with me and hanging out as I share another What's for Dinner video with you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.